lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and back with me again, I have Jim Valentino, one of the founding fathers of Image Comics. We got into a lot of stuff last time he was on the show, but wanted to have him back. 30th anniversary of Image Comics. He just put out the official Image timeline, so there's a lot still to unpack that we didn't get into last time. So welcome back to the show, Jim.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, like I said, we already went over like your side of the story for how Image started. I wanted to talk to you about, I'll just get right into it. Like you talk about in the beginning of the timeline, saving stuff, saving little like mementos. What was the impetus behind that? Did you ever think you would actually do something with it? Or like, how did you decide, oh, I need to save this, I need to keep these pictures? Like, why is my question.
I tried to save everything that I could, from the books themselves to articles in magazines to I took contemporaneous notes during meetings. You know, I saved stuff that isn't in the book, postcards, stuff like that, posters, all kinds of things. The reason was that I had the privilege of meeting a lot of the first generation creators. People like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and Murphy Anderson, Julie Schwartz, people like that, you know, people that really created the comic book industry. And every one of them, to a man, said that they regretted not keeping their early stuff, whether it was for the value of the stuff or just, you know, nostalgia for it or whatever. They all regretted not keeping it. So when I started out in small press and stuff like that, I kept everything because it was exciting to see my name in print. You know, this is what I'd always wanted. You know, how cool is that?
Right.
But, you know, after several hundred years of that, you know, it doesn't matter anymore. So when Image started, I figured this was going to be historically important. Even if it crashed and burned like everybody thought it was going to, it would still be historically important as a step forward, hopefully.
Right.
You know, so I kept everything as a result, and I knew the other guys wouldn't, you know, because they just wouldn't, you know. So I did.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about that. Like, you never know, right? You never know necessarily what is going to be a significant thing. Like you talk about those creators saying they wish they saved stuff. So you having that mentorship and that knowledge from them, you save everything. I mean, I'm sure there's so much more that you could have printed into this book. Now, why now though, right? Like it's 30 years. You could have done this for the 10th anniversary, 15th. Why did you decide finally now that you wanted to create this timeline with some of the stuff you've gathered? And then obviously, of course, there's research that goes along with it on top of that.
Yeah, lots. Why now? Well, it's 30th anniversary. You know, I'm going to be 700 last year, so I'm not going to be around too much longer. So, you know, it was one of those things where I figured, well, better do it now, you know. And as for a lot of the other stuff, some of it just didn't fit in. Some of it, you know, like the posters, I couldn't scan them. They were just too big. The postcards were just made up of cover images, things that you've already seen. And, you know, and I wasn't going to go into inside baseball, like I say in the forward. You know, somebody wanted me to spill all the gory details of our meetings and stuff. Here's the thing. We laughed a lot in our meetings. All these guys are pretty funny guys. So, you know, were there issues between us? Sure. You know, the Image partners are all very, very, we're all alpha males, all of us, you know. We're all ambitious. We're all focused on what we want. So of course there's going to be disagreements, but we kind of brought that down a lot by agreeing that we wouldn't interfere with one another. So that helped a lot. But sure, there's always, you know, personal disagreements and things like that. There's always going to be, but mostly we laughed.
And how did you decide? It's 30 years is a long time. A lot of
Yeah.
stuff has happened. A lot of stuff predated the actual launch of the company, and you guys are still going strong. So how do you decide what to keep in and what to omit?
I looked at things that I felt were of historic significance, either a book or a creator or an award or something like that. Something that I felt, and it's not just the best-selling books, because
Right.
somebody was saying, well, you know, you should do this book rather than that book because this book sells better. I'm going, okay, but it's just another book by this creator. Okay.
Right.
We've already covered that creator. Let's move on and find somebody else, you know. And it doesn't matter if it sold well or if it sold poorly, none of that mattered. But that was my criteria.
Okay. And then like when you decided that you wanted to take this on, did you go to the other guys, like the other founders, and like say like this is something you wanted to do, or you're like, I'm just doing it, and they found out after you were like,
yeah, they didn't care. They don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, it's yeah. No, we're not like that at all. We don't check in with each other. Can I do this?
Well, no, not necessarily
Unless it's
asking
using
you
somebody's
could.
character.
Yeah, not
Okay.
necessarily asking if you could, just saying like, hey, guess what? I'm deciding to do this, and I'm just giving you a heads up. You know.
I think I did, and I either got no response, or I think Eric Larson said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So that's it.
Okay. Well, you know, like going back down memory lane, before I get into some of the more interesting things that refreshed in my mind from reading this, I do want to ask, like, did it make you think, what if you don't do Image? Where do you think like things would have gone? Did that come across your mind as you were going back and going to the beginning and these early days and seeing how you very well could have decided like, hey, I don't want to go this route, I want to stay with Marvel? Did these thoughts like kind of resurface, or was that not something that kind of
It
crossed
didn't
your
really
mind?
resurface for me. I mean,
Okay.
you know, the thing is about Image, and Rob started it all. Okay, and
Yeah.
Rob and I were off again, on again roommates, right?
Right.
But it was Rob's idea. Rob named the company, he created the logo, he was the one who instigated everything, right?
Mhm.
But you got to remember, Rob was like 22 or 23 at the time, you know, something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, he was just a kid. But Image would not have happened had Todd not signed on, I don't think. And so Todd became the I don't know, linchpin, I guess, is that the correct term?
Okay.
So once Todd signed on, I thought this could turn into something. Then within a couple of days, Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee had signed on. So this this thing that was kind of brewing and going to become something just exploded, you know.
Right.
Because now you had Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, and Todd McFarlane. So, you know, the thought was, this can't go wrong. You know, it's like this is going to happen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
At least that was my thought. As to thinking about what I would have done if it wasn't for Image, I'd be stacking tires at Sears, you know, a job at a future. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that everything worked the way it did. You know, I just it was something that crossed my mind as I was reading it, because I read it the first time and then I again flipped through it to kind of make a little bit of notes of stuff I wanted to hit with you. So one of the things that I found interesting was, and you talk about having like a relationship with Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby Presents, that Todd wanted to put that at the beginning of every book. I think I've heard Rob mention on his podcast that Todd wanted, or somebody wanted to call it Kirby's Comics. I don't know if maybe I'm getting that wrong. I could be getting that wrong. But the Jack Kirby Presents, you definitely put in the timeline. Yeah. So why didn't you want to go to Jack and ask him if you could put that in the book?
Because I thought it was wrong on so many levels. Okay. You know.
Yeah.
I thought it was a misappropriation of Kirby and what he had done and all that kind of stuff. I just, you know, when Todd pitched it to me, I said, no, Todd, I'm not going to say that to him. I said, but I'll let him know what we're doing. If you want me to let him know. And he goes, yeah, go ahead, do that. So that's what I did. And I got an amazing response from Roz Kirby. So very, very heartfelt. She was almost in tears. I do remember that. That's a wonderful memory.
Yeah, I love that little anecdote you putting that in there, and I think it's those little things that you added that aren't just like, oh, this sold this much, or this this book would launch with it. Yeah. Like, it's those little things that you added that really make this a really cool project that you put together. And speaking of Kirby, the Phantom Force book, how did that come about?
Rob did it. I mean, that's all Rob. That's Extreme Studios.
Okay.
I think there's a page or two in each of the books that all the partners inked, except me, because I don't ink superhero stuff. I just don't have that sharp of a line. My line works really well on funny stuff, but not on superhero stuff.
1963 project. I'd love to kind of elaborate more on that, of how that came about, Steve Bissett, Rick Veitch, Alan Moore, and kind of take me through how you guys decided to do that project, and then again, why it never came to a conclusion. Yes.
I'm trying to remember. I think I talked to Alan about it, or maybe it was Bissett, not real sure, but said, whatever you want to do. And so they came up with 1963, which was a spoof, a parody, a satire on early Marvel. And why it never finished was Bissett and Veitch said it was Alan who wanted it to go over to Wildstorm and to Jim Lee, because I guess they figured it would sell a lot more if Jim Lee was attached to it. And it just never happened. Had I kept it, it probably would have happened, but that wasn't in the cards.
Okay. All right. And so going forward too, like, I like you included a lot of the stuff like intercompany crossovers, and then with crossovers. One that I completely forgot about until I saw it in here again was the Sonic the Hedgehog crossover, which I found, looking at it again now, I'm like, it's such an odd pairing, but I remembered it from kid because I was getting Sonic when that comic came out. So how did that collaboration come about, and kind of why Sonic of all characters?
The editor of the Sonic books at the time was a guy named Justin Gabriel. And Justin had sent me a note about a book I was doing at the time called The Touch of Silver. Okay. And said that he was the editor of Sonic. And I said, my kids love that game. So can I do like a pinup or something like that? So we got to talking, and I did a couple of stories for the Sonic books. And I had great fun drawing those characters. I've never really drawn funny animals before. They've never really appealed to me, except in cartoons. Like, I love the Warner Brothers cartoons and everything like that. But in comics, they just fell flat for me. But I really enjoyed drawing them. So somehow or another, I developed a friendship with Ken Penders. He was a great guy who was writing all the Sonic stuff at that time. And we got to talking about doing a crossover, which I thought was just sufficiently weird. And so I called up the guys and said, can I use your character in this? We're going to do a crossover with Sonic characters. And Todd was the only one who said, yeah, but just real limited, like 1 page or something. And I went, okay, that's fine. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to work around it and what to do. And that was it. That's how it happened. I mean, literally, I had a ball with it. I drew the Sonic characters. I think Harvo inked them, or Ken may have, and Ken drew the X-File characters and stuff. So it was great. It was fun.
Yeah, it's definitely something that the memory just like flashed back into my head reading it as a kid, and I just completely forgot that it existed.
Yeah, some things you should do just because it's fun. you know, and no other reason, you know, just we're having fun with this.
Was there, before I move on to some of the things from the book, was there any crossovers that were attempted to take place that maybe fell through?
Oh, sure, lots. Yeah. I mean, I know I had one of the big ones that I had was Shadowhawk and The Simpsons. Yeah, that came about because Matt Groening and I had the same attorney.
Oh, wow.
So we met and we were talking, and so we, let's do that. The only thing that came of it was Bill Morrison, who did all of the production work on The Simpsons. All the everything you see that isn't on TV was pretty much Bill Morrison. Great guy. And he had drawn a Shadow Bart card for me, a Shadow Bart trading card. And then The Simpsons had a card set, and I drew Shadow Bart and Homer Hawk on their card set. But initially we were going to do a Shadowhawk Simpsons crossover, and Bart was going to be Shadowhawk's kid partner called Squirrel, because for some reason or other that just seemed completely bizarre. So, again, another thing that's just fun, just to do it just for the sake of doing it, no other reason.
And why didn't it ever happen? Just couldn't.
Because the television network that was running The Simpsons, whichever television network it was, they had just put out a new animated show that they wanted to cross over with The Simpsons. And Matt didn't like the show, and so he didn't want the crossover. So the only thing that he could say is The Simpsons have never crossed over with anyone. And he called me up and said, we got to kill it, and here's why. And I went, okay, cool.
Dang, the studios fucked it all up.
Yeah, the studio fucked it up.
All right, well, going in, I think we talked a little bit about your time.
Oh, I know one more thing about that, to say what was lost. The late, great Mike Parobeck was going to draw it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he had done a couple of samples. They're on my Facebook page. I think you have to scroll through the photos and stuff. But he had done a couple of samples of Shadowhawk with Bart, and they were fabulous.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look those up when we're done talking. So like I said, we got into a little bit of the publishing side, as you kind of step away from the drawing and writing, and you kind of take that on. And I talked a little bit about how much new talent you kind of shepherded into the company, the types of book, the genres that you were putting out at that time, and kind of like kickstarted this like next generation of Image, in my opinion. So many things came out of that. I think that one of probably the high points that I noticed while I was looking at it is obviously bringing in Robert Kirkman, even though he lied to you about what Walking Dead was about, saying that it was about aliens, and it wasn't. And then Invincible kind of snuck in there. People didn't really, I don't think, give it the attention until more recently with the show. What were some of the standout moments for you during that time, and not creating and necessarily like producing a comic book, but helping people bring their visions to life under the Image banner?
Oh God. It's very hard to say. Robert, his first work with Image was actually on a Super Patriot series through Eric Larson. It's so hard to say. I remember bringing Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Avanoming over. That was really cool. I did a lot of stuff with different creators, some of which panned out, some of which didn't. It was. I remember getting a nasty letter very early on, 1992 or 93, somewhere in that, from some fan who said that my book was a loser because the back covers were given to alternative comics and not a real advertisement. And I was like, dude, I give the back covers to friends, so that's why Scott McCloud and Larry Martyr and Don Simpson and all these other people they got a free back cover, a free advertisement, because I wanted everybody to get in the bandwagon, to get a little boost in their career,
Mhm.
So,
Well, I think that, you threw out a couple names, I think that that's how some people have discovered those creators. I know me
God, I
myself,
hope so.
I was talking to Don Simpson the other day, and he asked me, he's like, "Oh, so you're the Image generation. Well, how did you discover me?" And I'm like, "Well, there's the Savage Dragon Megaton Man crossover that I saw, and and then from there I go down rabbit holes. I see a name of a creator, I dig their stuff, and I dive full force into stuff." So I think that that's cool on your part that, Scott McCloud is a huge name in comic books. Obviously, anybody that knows comics knows what a big name is, and Don Simpson's just hilarious.
Yes.
So
yeah, and we eventually did the Normal Man, Megaton
Right.
Man crossover, and of course Splitting Image, which I think in the Splitting Image, the 80-page giant, I give the whole story behind that and how it came about, what we did. But and another example of having fun with it.
I think when projects like that come out, you can feel that energy of it's just joy. It's doing something for fun, and I think that it comes across definitely. After your time as publisher, you guys tried to come together again. I say try because it didn't finish. It's for the Image United. I did talk to. I know only 3 issues came out. I know that there's some pages that are semi done. It's not completely finished, and it can't because Rob doesn't have Youngblood obviously anymore, so you guys can't do that. Have you guys ever thought about maybe putting out a collection of what there is? Even just,
I don't think so.
No,
because again, we run into trouble with Youngblood.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I don't see that happening. I think there's 3 issues. That's it. It's just sort of like 1963. It's sort of like there's 6 issues. That's it. That's all you get. Let it go.
Okay. Have you guys ever talked about jamming again? Any of you, even if it's not all of you?
No.
Or no?
Well, we did what was the last thing we did? We've had a couple of pieced together jams, things. I guess I should have printed those, where it wasn't new stuff, but it was, old stuff put together for store signings and stuff like that.
All right. Another thing that I, was reminded of while reading it was the Image Expo, which you guys started doing. I think, if I remember correctly, the first one was where you guys announced the exclusivity with Brubaker and Phillips, where all their projects would come out through Image. What was the idea behind starting kind of an Image con, and how come it didn't go past? I think it went like at least 2 or 3 years. If memory serves.
No, one more than that.
More
It
than that?
went for several years.
Okay.
I think it went for several years until it just seemed superfluous at some point or another. It was Stevenson's idea, I think. So you'd have to ask him all about it. He asked me to put that into the timeline, so I did.
Oh, okay.
He asked me to do that and to acknowledge the posters that had come out. So I said, okay, give me the one for Fiona. That's the best one. Let's put her front and center because she's great.
Okay. I asked you kind of how you decided what to keep, what not to keep. Is there anything that kind of stood out to you, but maybe you didn't feel like you needed to print it, or any other little anecdotes that you could share that you thought would be cool to put in, but maybe just didn't make the cut?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of stuff, and I have everything's in a file, right?
Okay.
So, and then I have subfolders, right? There's about 6 subfolders of stuff that never made it into.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a
there's
lot.
Lots of stuff.
Could you share a couple cool?
Well, like I said, posters, trading cards, postcards. There were announcements and things like that. Some of them made it to the odds and ends page, right? Tchotchkes that I didn't use, things like that. So, just a bunch of stuff like that I felt it would be cool, but it might be overdoing it. And there was there's a couple of pages that were fully finished that I excised from the book that I just went, no, we should do this instead. The thought originally was that eventually we would do a coffee table book, and that all of the errors from this first run at the timeline would be corrected and expanded in that coffee table book. And the coffee table book would basically, I don't know if you've ever seen the Beatles anthology, but what they did was they pieced together all these different interviews with the members of the Beatles. Yeah. They all contradicted each other constantly, right? So we thought that would be great fun, because of course all the image partners would completely contradict one another about everything, and so it would be a funny book to have, in much that same sense, because it all becomes Rashomon after a while, just everybody has their own idea of what happened, and it didn't, because we have these memories, these false memories of things. Like everybody remembers Jiffy peanut butter, okay? But there never was a Jiffy peanut butter. There was Jif and there was Skippy, but never a Jiffy. But we all remember it for some reason or another. Yeah. It's one of those really weird things. But the problem was we couldn't get anybody to edit this book and piece it together. We asked a couple of people and they were like, yeah, no, that's too much like work. So, it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Man, that sounds like an awesome book.
Yeah.
I would love to edit. I'd edit that book. That sounds
maybe
that's
for the
amazing.
35th anniversary, we'll find a volunteer.
Yeah, raise my hand right now. I'll volunteer to edit that book. Like that's just, I love Image Comics. It's my favorite publisher, and I love these types of books where you kind of get, you said inside baseball for maybe some of the drama, but I just love seeing, reading interviews, old interviews, getting to learn facts. And there isn't a book like that, in terms of the way you're describing it. So I think that'd be, there's so many people out there that I think would really dig that book. And I feel like especially that era right now is kind of a lot of people are nostalgic for, 90s things and 90s comic books. I know myself, I've gone back and filled in little gaps because I was a kid. So I'd grab comics when I could, I wasn't working, so I got what I could get, and now I'm able to fill it in. So yeah, I think that'd be an awesome project to see come to light for sure.
Like I said, maybe for the 35th.
All right, I'll keep my fingers crossed. So are there any on your end, we're just in the beginning of the 30th anniversary. February 1st was the first actual meeting that took place. This book dropped same week. So actually dropped the same day. I think February 1st was Wednesday, right? Or second. It was the second.
Yeah, second.
Yeah. Okay. So are there any other plans on your end to celebrate the 30th anniversary? Any other plans that you know of, maybe even not coming from?
We've talked about it, but the real problem is COVID is still a real thing.
Right.
So, what do we do? We've talked about doing a Zoom conference thing where all of us are doing the Zoom thing and people could come in and watch that. I don't think it's gained a lot of traction, which is kind of sad, we've been talking about the 30th anniversary for a couple of years, but nothing has seemed to really gel. And I think a lot of it has to do with the pandemic. I think everyone's kind of exhausted, about the whole thing.
And then, so, I know you do have a Shadowhawk special coming out.
Yeah, that should be out in August. It will have a couple of covers, including, it'll have the original Shadowhawk #1 cover, except this time it won't be silver embossed and everything. It'll be colored by Eric Stevenson.
Oh, cool.
We have another cover that I drew that Philip Tan inked and Brian Haberlin is going to color, that's based on Youngblood #1 cover. So it's a spoof on that, with all the Image characters, the original Image characters, except for Invincible, who we threw in.
Okay.
And of course, we can't do Jim's character because they're owned by DC, and that's just a headache. But I did get permission to use Shaft from Youngblood, so Shaft's on the cover. The book is going to be done by Philip Tan, who's a big Shadowhawk fan, has always wanted to do Shadowhawk. So I said, okay, tell me what you want to do. And he told me, and I said, all right, run with that. Let's see. So I'll be helping him a bit on the writing end, and Brian Haberlin will a bit on the writing end. And, you know, it's called Who is Shadowhawk? That's the name of the book, and it's the name of the story.
That's awesome. And is it just going to be that one special that we're looking at? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I mean, Philip Tan, awesome pick to draw a Shadowhawk book. So
yeah,
I'm
he's
stoked.
great. He is great.
Very stoked to see that. And then, you know, I kind of mentioned a little bit, you know, the 90s stuff and people being nostalgic for. Are there any plans to collect any of the old stuff that has not been in print for such a long time?
Like what?
The original Shadowhawk stuff. You can't get the trades for maybe the like Cyberforce and stuff. Well, I know like Mark is doing the Cyberforce
is coming out.
Yeah, he's doing the hardcover, but is there any plans to collect some of the older stuff that you can't find in stores right now?
I'm sure once he does the hardcover and gets that all done, it could come out as an Image first. You know, one of those $1 things, which would be nice. You know, I don't think it's ever been an Image first. That would be kind of cool. I think they've done it with Witchblade, but most of the stuff is in print, not Shadowhawk, just because it's awful. But you know, most of the other stuff is in print somewhere or another, somehow or another. So yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot, and I don't think there's a lot of plans to do that. We, you know, with the exception of the Image first and a book like the Timeline and stuff like that, I think we've always tried to move forward. I think that's one of our strengths. I think, you know, Todd decided a year or so ago that he was going to do all these new Spawn books, you know, and he did them last year throughout the year. And they all did very well, super well, you know, Gunslinger and King Spawn and The Scorched, which I think he should have stuck with the original name that he had. I thought it was better than The Scorched.
Oh, what was the original name?
The Chain Gang.
yeah, you should have stuck to Chain Gang.
Yeah, I thought, oh, that's cool. And everybody was like, no, that sucks. And I'm like, I think it's great, but you know, then again, you know.
Well, so like besides everything we talked about, what's next for Image? Where do you guys go from here?
I think we go forward. Our strength has always been the fact that because the partnership is so small, right? You know, there's only 6 of us, which seems like a lot, but isn't that much. And because we've invested a lot of authority into Eric Stevenson, who has great taste as far as I'm concerned. He doesn't always hit it out of the park, but who does? You know, no one does. So the idea, I think, is to find new creators, to find new books, new avenues to walk down, things that are different. They may succeed, they may not, who knows? You know, you get something like a Stray Dogs, for example.
Yeah.
And it takes off and it's a hit. Wonderful. But who would have predicted that? You know? So the idea is to take chances. And I think that's what we've been doing all along. And I think it's what we'll continue to do into the future.
Awesome, dude. I mean, like I said, Image is my favorite publisher, hands down. And I just love everything that comes out of there. I mean, like you said, not everything is going to hit the mark, but for me, it's like there's more hit than miss when I pick up an Image book. You know, I can put my trust in the Image brand, and I think that is just something that has been consistent for years, decades.
Well,
Now.
I think part of the reason for that is that we can move very, very fast, okay, and change gears very fast. Whereas a Marvel and a DC, they have to go through all that corporate rigmarole, We don't have to, we just go.
Yeah.
If it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, and hopefully more stuff works than not. But like everything else and everyone else, we're going to go high, and we're going to go low, and we're going to go high, and it's all cyclic, and you're going to hit bad times, you're going to hit good times, as long as you hang in there and are willing to change and are willing to look at the current digest and seeing what's going on and keeping your ear to the ground, you'll do okay.
All right, man. Well, I want to thank you for doing this book. As a fan of everything you guys do. I think it's an awesome project to have, to be able to hold in my hands, be able to flip through. I like I said, I just love these types of projects. I don't see them enough, and I made sure to ask the shop I work at. I was like, you better make sure I have a copy week of. I didn't want to miss out on it, and I was not disappointed. Awesome
Good.
book.
Thank you.
I hope everybody, listening or watching, you go pick up the Image Timeline book. It's really awesome, especially if you're a fan of all that, all the details of what goes into a company in their early days all the way till now.
I think people might be surprised at the variety of books that Image has published over the years, and just how somebody accused us of being a superhero company. And if you read the timeline, what you see is that, we started out doing superheroes. And the reason was that we had seen all these people leave Marvel and DC and do their art project and fail miserably. And we were like, no, we want to go toe to toe with Marvel and DC. So the best way for us to do that is do superheroes, out of the gate. That's what people expected of us. But if you look at the timeline, it changed really fast, really fast. I think people, I had a friend over yesterday, we went out to lunch, and he was looking at the timeline. He just said, man, there's so many things here I forgot.
There was things I didn't even know too. There was I didn't realize how early some of that stuff happened. I'd always as a kid, I'm like, oh man, that was later on. No, I was way earlier in the timeline, even just some of these Astro City, I had no idea it was as early as it was. For some reason, my mind told me it was later on. So a lot of cool facts in there. There's even some things that I didn't know existed. Like a book by Shannon Wheeler. I hadn't heard of that book. So
I did that a couple years ago.
So I'm gonna get that book. That's on my want list. Bunch of stuff in there. Just it's just such an awesome project, man. And I think you did a hell of a job.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's 30 years of. Just having to pick and choose, I'm sure was a challenge. But then to get stuff accurate and all the facts together, I'm sure was a tremendous amount of work. And you, like I said, fantastic job. But before I let you get out of here, I always kind of like to ask everybody I talk to anything that you've read recently that you want to recommend to anybody listening or watching. Anything you're currently digging.
In terms of comic books?
Yeah.
No, not really. I liked Stray Dogs. I liked The Me, Love in the Dark. I thought
Scotty
that was
Young.
a pretty good book. Yeah, Scotty Young, who I usually like what he does. I'm sure there's a couple of others that I really liked, but I don't read too many comic books these days. Or if I do, I read, old stuff, stuff from a long time ago.
Is there anything you've revisited recently?
Yeah, John Byrne's Fantastic Four.
Okay.
I bought an omnibus of John Byrne's Fantastic Four. And it was very good. It holds up very well. John Byrne's a despicable human being, but his work is good. So there's that. What I've been doing is rereading books that I read in high school and shortly thereafter. Because for me, it's been 50 years since I was in high school. So rereading this stuff is new. There's only one book that I've read out of the whole bunch of them that I have read that I was disappointed with, but mostly they've held up pretty well. So yeah, I'm reading 1984 again right now, which I haven't read since high school. And it's chilling how close it is to what's going on right now. Just chilling. So it's like, I recommend it strongly. Read it and then watch Fox News. No, you don't have to, because it is Fox News. It's unbelievable. So that's what I'm concentrating on these days. Next up is a Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway.
All right, cool.
You know, that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the regular. I'm gonna go get 1984 too, and I've got to go read that.
Or just watch Fox News, you know, and then
I'd rather read I'll read the book. I'll read the book instead of watching the news. But again, you know, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for putting this project together. Thank you for helping found, you know, Image Comics, man. I just appreciate all you do, all you've done, and I would love to chat with you again sometime in the future. Maybe when the Shadowhawk book comes out, we can kind of pick that apart.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again. And I will share all your links down below where people can find you online, and have a good one.
All right, man. Thank you.